What's up everybody, Dusty here, back with The Sims 2. Now you might be aware that I'm a pretty big fan of the game's Open for Business expansion pack. In fact, it's one of my favorites from the entire series. In my opinion, the best Sims expansions don't just enhance the experience with a few new items, animations, and destinations, but are the ones that introduce significant and meaningful new mechanics that almost make the whole game feel new again, and with a way that allowed Sims to embrace their entrepreneurial spirit and abandon the corporate rat race. I think it's safe to say Open for Business meets that criteria. And it's the fact that I was such a big fan of the expansion that makes it somewhat embarrassing to admit that it was only recently that I realized that in addition to being able to run your own stores to peddle various goods, that it also enabled your Sims to own and operate their own restaurants. Now I don't know how it's taken me nearly 20 years to discover this. I want to say it's because proper restaurants were reintroduced in Late Night, the expansion that immediately preceded Open for Business, and I just assumed that they wouldn't share any overlapping mechanics, but it's also possible I'm just a complete dumbass. So you know, take your pick. Anyway, upon learning this, I decided to look into it some more and quickly learned that running a successful restaurant is widely considered to be one of the most difficult endeavors to undertake in The Sims 2, to the point that there are apparently numerous mods dedicated to making it more manageable. But apparently, I'm a bit of a masochist at heart, as I decided to opt for the vanilla experience instead. After all, how bad could it actually be?
What have I done?
And I couldn't think of a better Sim for the job than our old pal, Honest Dust. Now the last time we saw him, things weren't exactly going all too well, as his neglect of his children/labor force resulted in their tragic deaths, leading him to burn down the evidence and escape with the insurance money. But now he's back with a luxurious new house, a fancy new car, and a new restaurant which he's eager to get up and running as soon as possible so he can reclaim his status as one of Pleasant View's premier businessmen. Now this is partly due to the fact that despite Honest Dust's insistence on keeping up appearances, all of his recent acquisitions and renovations have left him what the wealthy refer to as cash poor, so establishing a steady stream of reliable income is absolutely essential. But his new home also contained a very ominous door.
Say fellas, did somebody mention the door to darkness?
And one day, when Honest Dust had finally built up enough liquid courage to investigate, he discovered that on the other side there was a very creepy shrine, with the centerpiece of it being a supernatural phone with a one-way line to Death himself.
Hey guys.
Hey, Death.
And it turns out that the Grim Reaper is willing to restore his dearly departed children, as well as these two other bums he's never met, for a price. And despite his attempts at burying his grief with hedonism and extravagance during those rare moments when Honest Dust was left alone with his thoughts, he couldn't deny that there was something missing in his life, and he soon resolved himself to bring his darling daughter, Sarah Lee, back to life. Sorry, Davy boy.
I'm like, what did he say fuck me for?
Anyway, as you'd assume, the restaurant's grand opening was an exciting time as Honest Dust set his menu and prices, opting to keep things fairly cheap in order to get as many people in the door as possible. However, despite his initial enthusiasm and previous experience, Honest Dust would soon learn that running a legitimate restaurant presented a very different set of challenges from operating a sweatshop out of his attic.
Is that a steam whistle?
The loss of his labor force meant Honest Dust had to hire an actual staff who needed to be paid with actual money, and it turns out that fairly compensating your employees while also providing an affordable dining experience for your customers simply can't be done. In fact, even after sending his waitress Dagmar home, the restaurant was still losing money hand over fist on every meal, and by the end of the first day, Honest Dust was nearly 400 simoleons in the hole. Something needed to change. I mean, the poor bastard was forced to sell off one of his balcony chairs just to pay his bills. How is he expected to live in such conditions? However, there was one way to help remedy his current situation, so after another quick yard sale that I forgot to record, Honest Dust decided to test the waters with the Grim Reaper and made what he felt was a fair bid for the soul of Davy Boy. Apparently, old Grim didn't agree though, so while Honest Dust was reunited with his son, he wasn't exactly as he had remembered him. But Davy Boy's new status as a zombie wouldn't prevent him from being able to work at the restaurant, although Honest Dust quickly discovered that having him act as a waiter might not have been the best way to utilize his talents. So it didn't take too long before Davy Boy was moved behind the scenes to take over as the chef, while Honest Dust assumed his serving duties. Now unfortunately for Cole here, this left him as the odd man out, and he was promptly informed that his services were no longer necessary, and Dagmar would soon suffer the same fate, as Honest Dust needed to cut as many expenses as possible.
So that's it after 20 years. So long, good luck.
I don't recall saying good luck.
It took a lot of long nights, hard work, and changes to the menu and pricing, but slowly yet surely, everything started to come together, and the restaurant quit bleeding money. However, the true turning point was when Honest Dust moved his bar from his house to the restaurant and hired Neil here to act as the bartender. See, just having someone behind the bar automatically generates 16 simoleons every so often that goes straight into Honest Dust's pocket for some reason. It might not sound like much, but every dollar counts at this stage, and it was one of the key reasons Dust Family Dining turned a profit for the very first time. And it should be noted that despite being brought back from the dead primarily to resume his role as a source of free labor, Davy Boy's relationship with his father was undoubtedly far healthier the second time around. The boy was no longer kept under lock and key and was allowed to resume attending school and actually carve out a social life for himself, which was highlighted by a budding relationship with Sherry Scamp. But really, it's the fact that his dad was now actually willing to pitch in and pull his weight that brought the two closer together than ever before. Obviously, having to juggle the responsibilities and banal bullshit of high school life with the pressure of helping out at your family's restaurant just to keep the repo man away certainly isn't ideal, but when you're knee-deep in the shit and your old man's right there beside you, it's a lot harder to feel like you're being exploited. Sadly though, Neil here didn't feel the same way, and this did bring one of the expansion's flaws to the forefront, as by this point I was on solid enough ground that I would have been more than willing to bump up the guy's pay, but you can only give your employees a raise when they're actually at work, and Neil just kept refusing to come in because he wasn't happy with his current wage. And even when someone is at work, in my experience, I found the management tab often won't pop up for them if they're currently assigned a task, so like most capitalists, I eventually settled upon the strategy of running my employees into the dirt until they eventually burn out and quit on me, at which point I just find a cheaper replacement to start the whole process all over again. Now, is this approach entirely ethical? Probably not, but I mean, considering that at one point Honest Dust was seriously thinking about intentionally killing off his staff and going with an entirely zombified workforce, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. Luckily for everybody, it never came to that though, and Dust Family Dining eventually established itself as a cornerstone of the Pleasant View community, renowned for its high-quality food, charming atmosphere, and friendly service. And the restaurant's reputation was only aided by Honest Dust's legendary, and some would even say almost mystical talent for salesmanship, which allowed him to win over even the most skeptical of potential diners. But while Honest Dust was thrilled to have a thriving new enterprise, he never forgot why he was doing this, and eventually he would indeed save up enough money to bring Sarah Lee back to life. And unlike with Davy Boy, he was willing to pay a premium to ensure she was returned in perfect condition, which I'm sure was greatly appreciated by Sarah Lee's old squeeze Ivy, as it didn't take long for the two to reconnect and pick up right where they left off. Now, considering that I not only managed to get Dust Family Dining out of the red, but also reunite a broken family, I'd have to consider this to be a challenge successfully completed, and it's one I would fully recommend to any Sims fan out there who might be looking to inject some new life into their next playthrough. Yes, it might be a little overwhelming at the start, but if you're willing to stick with it and tough it out, then you might find yourself enjoying one of the most rewarding Sims experiences you've had in quite some time. And if worst comes to worst, then you can always just fall back on some cheap child labor like a true entrepreneur. What's up everybody, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you didn't, then I've got no clue why you're still hanging about at this point, but whatever, you do you. But if you did enjoy it, then why not leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel so that you can be kept up to date with all my latest content. Or don't let me tell you how to live your life. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, I'm out.